Welcome to I'm Finally Reading My Brother's Book, a podcast where I, Clay Bascom, dive headfirst into the world of cosmology, physics, and all things space by finally reading my brother's book. My brother, Dr. Gavin Bascom, is a theoretical chemist with a PhD from UC Irvine, and for years he's been pestering me to read the book he wrote called On the Inside of a Marble. It's dense, it's brilliant, and honestly a little over my head, but I'm finally doing it. Each episode, I'll read a chapter, and then Gavin and I will break it down together. We'll talk about the science, the ideas, and the mind-bending concepts that inspired the book. And I'll ask the questions you might be thinking too. In this first episode, though, we're not diving into the book just yet. Instead, we're talking about the question that inspired the whole podcast. What if our universe is actually inside a black hole? It's a theory that resurfaced recently online, and it sparked one of those long, winding conversations between Gavin and me, the kind that leaves your brain hurting in the best possible way. So welcome to I'm Finally Reading My Brother's Book. Let's get into it.
Anyway, yeah, space. Give me more of it, please.
I think it's too big as it is. So here's a question. Are there any black holes in our universe as big as our universe? Or is the black hole we're in too big?
No, that's a surprisingly good way to put it. Like that's not a malformed question. Can there exist a black hole in our universe as big as our universe?
That's a legitimate question. I assume
it's a real
no.
question. No, it's a real I don't.
Because we can't really, we can measure the mass of a black hole, right?
We can measure, yeah, there's some physics there that you can use to say what except there's a relationship between the amount of stuff that falls into the black hole and how big it gets.
Right. Yeah,
So
the direct
there's
relationship.
a radius and a mass thing.
So you can say, if its radius is this big, then the black hole has this much mass.
The amount of mass in it, which there is that's one of the big calculations that people have used for a long time to make this like funny provocative statement that maybe we're inside a black hole, because the mass lines up very closely to the radius of the known observable universe. Observable.
Yeah, observable.
I'm going to be very careful in this whole thing about saying observable all the time and not just universe.
Right.
Because that's the big distinction, is like the actual universe is something that we cannot understand.
Can't see it.
And measure, because you can't see what you can't see. So when you say observable universe, you're talking about anything that has ever been measured or can be measured theoretically.
So
the actual universe could be a whole lot bigger.
It probably
a lot different than that.
Unless we have an edge. Because here's the question. The universe is getting bigger. So we can see farther and farther every day, right? Like we're...
I don't think that's right. The universe is not getting bigger. The observable universe is the same size as it's ever.
But the universe is expanding. We know that.
Space is expanding.
Oh, so there's a distinction between space expanding and the observable universe expanding.
Yeah.
So the observable universe is not expanding.
I don't know, because if space is expanding, yeah, go ahead. Because if like the radius is getting bigger, but like no, because we can only see to the end. This is what's so tricky to use the language. But I talk a lot about this in my book. You can only see to the beginning.
The observable universe is expanding. The expansion is a fundamental aspect of our universe, and it's been happening since the Big Bang.
But they're talking about
galaxies increases.
They're talking about space. They're talking about space expanding, but also all of the things are moving away from each other.
Yeah, this is the AI thing, so I don't think the AI is actually going to answer this properly.
Yeah, but they're gotten better. They're pretty good. I think it's and these are general questions. Regardless, this is where normal language sort of craps out. Like, what do we mean?
Okay, so according to this, the cosmic horizon is like every year is getting bigger. We can see new light on the cosmic horizon, I guess. Oh no, this guy's saying that no, that guy's wrong. I think there's some debate here.
Yes, because what do you mean by cosmic horizon? So again, and this is chapter 1 of my book. Not to plug it too hard, but like,
you wrote a book.
Yeah, I did. When we say we're looking at stuff far away, we cannot distinguish that from stuff that is old.
Right. So that's why
the something is, the older it is. So when you say you're looking at the farthest thing away possible to look at, you're actually looking at the beginning.
You're looking at the Big Bang, right?
So when you're saying like that the observable universe is getting bigger, that's kind of a misnomer.
Right. The universe is expanding, but you can't see anything past beyond the Big Bang. You can't see
anything past the beginning.
Which actually
that's never going to change.
For my logical brain is actually evidence that we are inside of a black hole.
It's evidence that there is a cosmic event horizon, right? There's something out there. There's something
Well,
out there that's weird and hard to look past.
well, I mean,
But
I
is
guess
it?
just the explanation, like the Big Bang just spontaneously happening is not like an answer, right? And so you have to assume there was something before the Big Bang. I know time and stuff and sequentiality doesn't really make sense when you're talking about this stuff in the first place, but I am a sequential being, and so I like to think about there's something
Yeah,
happened before the Big
yeah,
Bang, and
yeah.
just saying, oh, we're inside of a black hole, and so that's why the black hole created this universe. That just doesn't actually answer like the problem what humans have, which is like, well, what happened before that? It's like, well, no, you'll never get to the end, right?
Right,
Because it's
right.
infinite. Um,
And there are real physicists taking time before the Big Bang as a serious like concept.
mhm.
And there's the people have talked about big crunches, they've talked about cyclical universes, they've talked about all sorts of things, but none of them are really taking seriously the relativity part of this, which is why this is my most favorite, most fun topic of all time because Big Bang is more of like a observation of how the heat and everything and all the stars formed and like we're like putting all this stuff in a nice neat narrative and being like, well, everything was really hot, so like when you look really far out, things get hotter, weirdly. Like the older they were, the hotter they were. And at some point it looked like everything was just crazy hot. So that's what we call the Big Bang. Like the whole universe was just hot at some point way out in the cosmic horizon. Relativity says something totally different, which is that the analogy here is if you're in curved spacetime, that's not the analogy. The fact is, if you're looking at curved spacetime, there will be sort of fictitious things. So, like, say you're walking on the planet at a fixed distance apart from somebody else and you're walking towards the pole, you will be getting closer to that person as you get closer to, and it's not because there's like a force on you, but you might ride a force. You can say, hey, look, there's a force, there's pushing. We're not pushing away from each other, but we keep getting closer to each other. If you're unaware of the shape of the Earth, you keep getting closer to each other. When space-time gets compressed, that's the like gravity is space-time like
Compressed.
not compressed but curved, so that when you move without any other acceleration, you just sort of move in a different direction. You like move towards the thing with gravity or whatever. Space-time says that the time itself goes like this.
Oh, weird.
There is nowhere for time, and it's not that there's a force or anything. It's just like that is the end of time, like the ability to see time and follow like linear time curves. I'm not saying it exactly right, but
Interesting. Okay, so I think I kind of understand.
which is
Because
kind of support for the black hole theory, right?
yeah,
Because that's what happens on an event
that
horizon in the black
happens.
hole.
I
Yeah,
also like to think of it too, because time is one of those hard concepts in talking about space, is that time only matters when there's entropy, right? And so, like, I've heard people describe it as like, okay, if you have a cup of coffee and the coffee's been sitting there for long enough that like everything inside the coffee is completely distributed, there's really no distinction between time and not time in the with like you get down to the
like
molecules,
the
whatever,
the
within the
milk in
coffee.
the coffee.
It's like
Yeah,
fully like zero entropy, and so it's just like there's no milk in the coffee. It's just coffee, and it's just bouncing around, and it's like okay, it's fully uniform. There's no difference between time going backwards and forwards, right? It's just
yeah.
happening, and then
Or
you
you
pour
can't
in.
tell.
You
Yeah,
can't tell if you were dropped into the middle of it. You couldn't tell going back and
yeah.
forwards. It's just all
Right.
similar chaos, whatever. And then somebody pours milk in. Well, until the milk becomes fully unified, you can easily be like, oh yeah, this milk
There's
blob
a
is moving over
gradient.
here. There's a gradient.
Yeah.
Until entropy goes back to zero, time suddenly exists, right? And so that's a good way for me to think about the universe. Like, okay, well, maybe there was just zero entropy at the beginning, before the black hole. This isn't really about our having an observable universe, but that helps
Right.
me understand time. Of just that, like, okay,
Right.
time can stop existing once, like, there's just no entropy anymore. It's like because then it becomes
Or
meaningless.
you can't measure it anymore.
Right, right. That's a good way to say it.
You can't
Yeah.
measure it. This is what's so hard about this stuff is like, and the when in thinking about relativity and like trying to think a lot about relativity, what it comes down to is like if I try to measure time, it depends on how fast I'm going.
Yeah, it's still
So
still a mind bending, like to have really wrap my head around that. Like, what does
you
that mean?
can't. It's hard. So if I'm going faster than somebody else, I'm going to measure time differently. And like Einstein, it's super cool, right? He was a young guy and he was a patent attorney because like a ton of, and like it was in an era when there were no standardized clocks, but trains were starting to be such that people were showing up from cities where they were on a slightly different time clock than somebody. So like there were all these problems with people not being able to keep track of what time zone they're in because time zones hadn't been standardized, and there were all these patents being filed for like inventions to measure time correctly and to like sync up your clocks and stuff. And like that's the kind of stuff he was reading at the patent office. So when you go read his books, like the first several chapters of his book is like all about, okay, if I'm on a train going this way and somebody's going on a train going this way and he has his clock out and he's going like this and they have their clock out, and like he was just realizing like none of these things work if you're accelerating.
That's crazy.
One person's accelerating, then none of these like instantaneous sync ups work. And he just could never get rid of that weird inconsistency. And it turns out it's true in a very fundamental way. Like everything measures time differently. So, but yeah, and then the arrow of time coming from entropy is another like something that people talk a lot about with the universe. But to me, that goes back to this very strange and not at all intuitive understanding that like the older something is, generally the hotter it is. Which
why I get colder when I get older because I die.
Yeah, right. Because we're on the other side of the swing. That's essentially what the Big Bang is saying, is that everything in the universe started out hot and dense and then started cooling. And when it cooled, you have these like non-equilibrium things called atoms that start to form, and then the atoms start to form into stars, and the stars start to form into like nebulas, and like, but it's all like a slow, like you say, milk in the coffee, that it will eventually turn into like the heat death of the universe. But the heat death of the universe is not something that's ever been proven. It's just an extrapolation.
Right. Well, you assume if the universe is expanding and continues to expand at the current rate,
it will eventually
just all die. Which is also interesting because everything will just eventually fall into a black hole. The observable
universe, again, the observable universe is expanding. Like,
right.
And
so maybe there's something out there that's not expanding.
I don't know, because the space, like the measurable distance, and then there's a redshift on all the galaxies and stuff. So things are moving away from each other. But call me an optimist. I think there's more to it. I think that if we could, because here's the other thing we haven't talked about yet. If you take a measurement, so the time thing is like taking a measurement, just like a very like measurement. So it's like it's a rhythm measurement. If you take spatial measurements, you have to go out and like say, okay, I'm going to measure a piece of light here, and then I'm going to go out and measure a piece of light there, and measure a piece of light there, measure a piece of light there. You can extrapolate the source of that light. We only have ever been, that's a camera, right? If you can make a camera like this big, you can see farther. And if you make it like different shapes, then you can see different aspects of how far things are, but only from a few seconds ago or milliseconds ago. If what telescopes are, like what James Webb is, which we can get around to that, is like a really, really big camera, and that you can measure across a much bigger, wider thing. I think, and this is a really wild, crazy claim, I think if we were to make a camera as big as our solar system, we would see something different. It is, though. We just haven't done it.
Like, the size of our solar system. Gotcha. Yeah. I thought you meant the universe. I was like, okay, that's too big. So our solar system is also very big.
I think you'd keep seeing.
What if it was like the size of a planet? We could probably pull that off.
That's there's because a camera is just taking measurements at different points and putting them together. So you can point satellites on all sides of the planet towards the same spot in the night sky and like take measurements.
Oh, that's what you mean.
You can do that.
So you're saying if we got enough satellites throughout the solar system, we might be able to see something past the observable universe?
Yeah. There's this wild video. No. You can never see past the observable universe.
Oh, but you can see different structures.
Yes, you can see more structure and nuance into the early universe to as to understand better.
Well, it's partly what the James Webb Telescope is doing, right?
Yeah. Although the news was just that they measured the spin on galaxies because they get more infrared.
Right. Yeah.
But you're right. Also, they can see into the darker, earlier ages of the universe, and it doesn't match up with our.
Yeah, which I mean, the models were, I think our models were lacking a lot of data, so it makes sense. I don't think there's a lot that people love to make headlines like, we're going to have to rewrite everything we know about physics, and it's like,
because we didn't know that much about it.
Yeah, exactly. That's the part of the thing they're leaving out. They're making it seem like it was like, well, it was mostly guesswork up until now. Now we have real data, and it's like, hey, we're going to rewrite it, but it's not going to change our fundamental understanding of the laws of physics. It's more just rewriting like the history of the Big Bang and being like, oh, we just basically assumed it was all this hot, and then it wasn't this hot, and this is when planets formed, and it's being like, but we were seeing stars and planets before that. Like, oh, okay, it must have been this hot.
Oh, right. I meant a little bit hotter. Yeah. Which
that kind of stuff.
You have to remember when you say like we haven't thought about it, we don't know about it. Like there's no cabal
No,
of
I know.
astronomers out there.
Yeah.
There's like a dozen people thinking about this on a regular basis. So,
Yeah, I mean,
you
there's
know,
plenty of professors and stuff who hopefully stay somewhat abreast of like the new
oh, for sure.
sciences.
It's a vibrant field. I'm just saying it's
Yeah,
smaller than you would think. And
sure.
if you went and called those people on the phone, you probably, which I, I don't know how much of this will make it into the podcast, but like I am not a full-time astronomer, right? But
What?
I wrote a book about it, and I had a really interesting experience because I'm in physics and I'm in medical research for the most part, study proteins and stuff.
We'll
And
have to do bios at the beginning.
yeah, at some point we'll do it.
We'll retcon the beginning
Yeah,
of.
but it when I wrote the book, it was like a foray for me. I was like I was going into a new field, and which is always a little nerve-wracking because you're like, I'm not an expert here. What if I say something wrong? And in my own field, there is so much scrutiny over every word. And if you say the wrong thing, just a little bit, people get real mad at you. But it was just hilarious. Like the first review that I got back was like, I don't really think you know what you're talking about, and I'm not sure you even know what you're saying, but I'm really happy that you're trying to say something about this. Please write this book.
Yeah, those nice people in physics
And
and
well, in cosmology, and
cosmology.
they were very excited that
Oh,
somebody
you mean
else was
astrology?
taking. No, not astrology. It was just they were just excited that somebody was taking a crack at it,
Yeah.
But
Well, I will read your book. I've tried. It's
oh,
above
you still
my
haven't read it.
pay grade.
One of the not so secret things I'm hoping that could happen in this podcast is that we like
We should
go
read it chapter
through
by
the
chapter.
topics. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
that's what we should do.
it
Yeah.
becomes a companion to the
Hmm.
book, and then I can bring on because I have other friends that are more experts in like the different subtopics and stuff. And I could bring them on and we could talk about those and like what is truly interesting about each because every chapter like kind of tackles like one thing that I found very interesting, but it goes, again, not to plug it, but it goes pretty wide arc. Like it starts out with thinking about observing the universe, like all this topic we just had, and then it goes down to like quantum and like think
Yeah.
about like the specifics of
Well,
why quantum's hard to understand and where that goes.
I would love to get into that because I do think that one of my preferred areas of like randomly reading about stuff is people trying to marry quantum and the theory of relativity. It's just like
Yeah.
there's special theory of relativity just because it's it's once we do that, our understanding of the universe is going to be way better. I guess I don't know. It's
Well, it's going to be different. I don't know about better, but like
well, I feel like
the
we'll be much better like able to predict certain things.
I think
And
yeah,
I think our
yeah.
understanding of things we see that now are mysteries will become clear once we can figure out how those two. And really, it's black holes are a good example, right? Because it's like when you take time and when you take that much space and gravity and you force it into a small point, right?
Mhm.
Where you have all of this, where all of a sudden the quantum laws start to apply. I think that's when things get really fucking weird.
Yes, that is when things are really weird. Actually, and if you like Brian Greene and like the some of the bigger names in the field, that's what they actually are doing day-to-day research on. Like Stephen Hawking was like what he worked on
Yeah.
his entire career was basically what happens at the Schwarzschild radius, what happens when particles go in, and what happens to information. Is it because they're all working on this like feverishly on this question, like what does that mean? That
Hmm.
space-time implodes and there's a whole new space-time on the other side of it because it's fun
White
for us to think about it, but they're actually like
white
writing
holes.
down
Well, they're going through the
yeah,
math, right?
yeah,
Actually going through the equations and being like, okay,
and
this has to be
yes,
true, but if this is true, then this other thing that has to be true can't be true. How
or like
to figure it out?
okay, so here's a mathematical framework that works to describe this phenomenon, this thing called world lines. There's symmetry in the math, so if there's a black hole,
Should be a white hole.
there's gotta be a white hole somewhere. What is that thing? And but I think
Hmm.
what nobody,
I read an interesting theory about why we don't see white holes. It
maybe
wasn't.
we're in the only white hole
Well, I
that
mean, yeah, it had when it's over my head, but essentially the thing was is that there will be white holes, they just haven't happened yet. It's like okay, or there's another one that just basically said that like white holes, time gets weird around them, and so when they happen, like it's not observable, and so like maybe that's what the Big Bang looks like. That maybe that is the white hole.
keeps converging on the same, yeah.
Yeah, which
Same
I
idea.
like the idea of that. I did read a paper that talked to, I should have reread it before we jumped on. I think I sent you an email about it. But anyway, it was interesting because there was somebody who, they were just theorizing. They didn't have like a mathematical model that said this, but essentially they were just taking some quantum laws And we're basically saying that, like, I'm going to butcher it, but a black hole essentially is the singularity where space and time and gravity, everything is to a single point. And in quantum, you can't have that. I think it's Planck's law. It's like you can't
Yeah.
have two existing
Yeah.
states at the same time. And so
Yeah.
it's like that. So basically, like, for that reason, the matter and the gravity and stuff inside has to go somewhere. And so maybe it bursts the universe. But I like the visual
Mm.
idea that inside every black hole, and maybe there's some sort of time attached to it that doesn't happen instantaneously, but like eventually they birth a whole nother universe that could have its own
Mhm.
black holes and birth smaller universes. But then the idea is like everything's getting smaller and smaller as you go down.
Well, that's the crazy thing, though, is space-time. No, it doesn't get smaller from inside the universe per se.
Well, okay, we're not adding mass to the universe, right? The universe has a set amount of mass.
I think that's where a point we didn't make. I think that the number is so big. It's like 2.43 something in terms of the what we estimate to be the mass of the universe. That's not a very precise
Sure,
calculation,
yeah, no, yeah,
right?
that's
And
can't count every
um
grain of sand
yeah,
at
exactly.
at the
And
beach.
in fact, we can only see something like a third of the universe. We can't see past the galactic center. I don't know how the precision of those numbers holds up,
Sure, sure.
but the idea
Yes,
is that the relationship of the Schwarzschild radius getting bigger is the amount of mass that has fallen in. The idea, even and actually to go back to your thing about whether there's something before might be a malformed question. Like that's not there is no descriptor for a thing called before
right.
when space-time bends that way.
Mm-hmm.
But the mass probably fell in, if in this view of us being inside the black hole, the mass fell in through everything that's in the universe fell in from
Through
some
a
other
black hole from
universe,
some other reason. Yeah.
right?
So
And
if
that's
you
the
think of
amount
it
of
that
mass that
way, that's the
formed.
amount of
Yeah.
mass. The question is like, I know time gets funky, but like my brain can't help but ask the sequential questions, which is like, okay, well,
Yeah.
but is everything in the universe, what if the black hole exists in another universe still and something goes through it? Does it come into our universe? Or is it more
Yeah. Right.
likely, or is it more likely
Okay.
like time gets weird, and so when a black hole is born, the white hole already has all the mass it's ever going to get, and
Kind
so
of.
like,
I don't know. This is where I'm
and so
speculating just as
like,
much, but
yeah,
basically the idea of the singularity at the edge of the Schwarzschild radius or whatever, as you're falling in, someone will see you sit, if you're falling into a black hole, someone will see you sit on that for forever.
yeah, the event horizon,
You
right?
just
Yeah,
you just like freeze. You will look backwards and see the whole universe's time like go before you.
it's
Then
crazy.
then you pass across it and you will see the beginning of the universe and forever. Like so there is no such thing as
Going into a black hole,
there was then before and then there's after,
right?
right? Which the mass had to have come from somewhere, so there has to be a sequential, right?
Yeah,
But from the perspective of the mass,
it's instantaneous,
you
right?
are not that it's instantaneous, is that there's an infinite end and there's an infinite beginning.
Beginning, right, right. So I think in that sense, it sort of like kind of solves the problem of like, right? Because if you think about it, if we're a white hole and all of you picture a black hole and on the other end of it, the tube, and the other end there's a white hole, there should be somewhere in our universe a thing spitting out mass, right?
Yeah, I don't
But
think that's
that's
it.
I don't think that's
I
how it
think it's
works.
all mass that has ever
Gone into that black hole is already,
existed has already
yeah, yeah.
you will forever be that we could have ever observed will have been in there.
Yeah. So
So
anyway, so yeah, that's how I like to think of it currently. And so the idea is basically like, because time gets weird, we're not going to see more mass popping into our universe. Our black hole mass is what it was, but there's only so much mass in our universe, and so it's obviously just by the laws of math, unless we're creating new mass in our universe, all of the black hole universes that our universe creates will be smaller, right? And it has to step down in mass size.
I see what you're
So say you could somehow build
only
a ship.
only for our current moment in time.
Sure.
Eventually all the mass falls in that needs to fall,
Yeah. Or yeah, maybe that's the thing. Somehow, like a supermassive black hole eats all the mass in this universe eventually, and bursts it again. So maybe that's the whole. Because I used to think that it would make more sense that the bouncing back universe where it's like it made more sense to me
Right.
to be like, okay, you have
Right.
it grow, and then some force pulls everything back in, and you have a universe, and that's what
The
caused
big
the Big Bang,
crunch.
the big crunch.
Yeah.
Yeah, but now we know, that's not going to happen. Our current models say that's not likely.
Yeah.
The
The
universe is
CFD model
expanding.
doesn't use it, but yeah.
Well, it's just basically the universe is expanding. I mean, this is the whole reason we have antimatter and everything is the universe is expanding faster, as if there's more matter that we can't see. There must be, or no, dark
Antimatter,
mass,
dark
dark
matter,
matter. So there must
antimatter,
be, it
dark
must
matter.
be
Yeah.
matter out there that's causing the universe to expand. And so anyway, I digress. But it's just as a thought experiment, the idea of like, well, if you could build a ship that could cross into a black hole and somehow not get spaghettified and you could come out on the other side, then if that, if you could do that and you fly into a black hole, when you got in there, all of the mass that that black hole was gonna, soak up should be in this new universe. So you should be able to, the observable universe there should match the total mass of that black hole, right? Because that's what our black hole does. And so from that perspective, it's like if you could keep going down the rabbit, the black holes, eventually you get to the smaller and smaller and smaller observable universes.
Well, you know what? But this is where I should bring up the contribution that Hawking made
Right, because
throughout his
also there's
lifetime.
the Hawking radiation, right? So
Well,
that also
exactly,
throws a wrench
exactly.
into it. So it's like, is that
Yes.
where is the Hawking radiation going if we're inside of a black hole, right?
Yes. And basically the point he made was that like the information radiates back off and it's still there, but it's just like spaghettified or whatever. It's like smoke. And
Yeah, because that solved the problem of information because you
information preservation
can't,
or whatever.
yeah. So it's like you can't, it's one explanation for it, and I think it's the best one we have. Although I was reading that there's some people who think there's more to it than just Hawking radiation.
Well,
But
yeah,
okay,
there's always so many more to it. There's always people talking about stuff. But anyway,
yeah, there's some guy talking about how the information is probably encoded on the surface of the black
yes,
hole.
that's a big topic, right? Yes,
Yeah,
people
and I'm like,
talk
oh,
about
that's
that.
interesting.
Well, because where does it go? Does it go? The information go inside? With the mass goes inside, but does the information go inside?
And if it does, then doesn't that create and destroy the information? If the information is destroyed, then that doesn't work with our
Yeah, which
understanding of
hence
the universe.
I think that's probably the person's theory about it being on the purpose. But I think what's his name? Anyway,
Hawking.
people write about this. Not Hawking, but also not Brian Greene, Brian Cox.
Yeah,
He's
he's
like
great.
currently working on theories about like his postdocs are working theories about this.
I like him better than Neil deGrasse Tyson as far as like face for space. Neil
I
deGrasse
like
Tyson
them
is
all.
fine.
I
He's
like them
great.
all.
I like it. Can
I
be a
hope they
little,
listen to this podcast at some point.
what's up, guys? Yeah, it would be interesting to meet those guys. Ross Aiken was great. He was a good face for space. I think we could use some more positive space stuff.
I
Can't wait
like
till we
Dale.
get a
I like
a
Dale.
space elevator.
I think he does a
Woo!
great job.
Boots on the moon,
What's up?
2025.
What's on the moon?
Did you ever watch that really bad? What's it? It's not very good. Space Force.
Yeah, it wasn't great.
Finished it.
Love Steve Carell.
Love
Love
Steve
Steve
Carell.
Carell.
He did great in it, but it was just the writing was kind of lazy.
What are you gonna do?
Boots on the moon.
Maybe this is a good place to stop. There's a bunch of other topics I want to touch on. Should be fun, but like to me, the more you think about what like warp space time does to measurements and how you think about stuff, like it helps think through these things, even if they don't make any more sense than they did when you first started thinking about it. But at least you understand where your understanding breaks down, and like that's like nice. But like we haven't talked about light yet
Oh
and
yeah.
like light in the
Why
context of
does
relativity. So maybe next time,
why
but
does light have a speed limit? It
yeah,
seemed
where does the speed
cool.
limit come from? From the perspective of a photon, things are instantaneous and it's massless, which means it's like actually really just a feature, somehow like a feature of the universe interacting with itself, which that's how I think about it.
The universe, a feature of the universe interacting with itself. So it's touching
Yeah,
itself?
like it's like a crack. That's how it's like a
A
crack in space
crack.
time.
A lot of
Like,
cracks.
yeah, yeah. Whole
It's
universe is
also hard
fraying and sort
to
of crapping out.
weird. It's so interesting to think about that because light is so important for our physical
Yeah,
interaction with the
yeah.
universe. Think of it as cracks. There's a lot
But
of cracking.
we're actually doing a pretty good job of following the topics of the book, where the first one is about perspective, like sorry, the chapters in the book, which the first is about perspective, and then the second is when I start getting into, what I call cracks in the marble, which is like about the way that light is. We can spice this all together because it was going pretty well. But but the nature of light and the way that I think about light being the sort of the universe interacting with itself, or the inability to distinguish between things features in the universe as it like slips and space-time like slips a little bit and like energy sort of pops and jumps from one place to through time and shows up somewhere else. There's no way to distinguish that scenario from what we think of as like the traditional sort of light popping off of a hot source and like a photon popping off and showing up somewhere else.
Yeah, because from its perspective, it's instantaneous, but we can measure
instantaneous
that it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Well, here's a quick question.
We're not in the same frame of reference as the light.
Solve this question for me real quick. Is light a particle or a wave?
Both.
What?
Yeah.
Bad joke.
But it's generally measured as a particle.
Right.
And this is where like the misnomer comes from. Because it's the differential. So it's like a change in the wave of the electromagnetic radiation or like the electromagnetic waves. But the rate at which you will observe it is governed by a probability wave. So,
interesting.
Yeah. And we can get into that. That's quantum stuff.
I was going to say, yeah, that sounds like quantum.
We'll do another.
Or lots of probability waves.
Probability waves are what govern all the things everywhere.
I have to try to really explain to me what an electron is, or is it more of a field?
I don't know.
Maybe I can wrap my head around protons. At least I thought I knew what a proton was and a neutron.
Quarks.
But then
we'll be doing quarks.
Then I heard quarks. To be fair, quarks was not a thing when I did my physics study, so I really don't understand quarks very much, other than the idea that like, are they mass? They have mass.
Yeah.
Quarks have mass. Yeah. Or does mass only suddenly become a thing once you get to neutron protons?
Something about Higgs boson. This is where all my stuff drops out pretty fast.
Quarks are confusing.
The particle physics models are very confusing. I will probably keep it simple. We'll stay with light.
Okay.
And
that sounds good.
We can think about light from a relativity perspective.
We'll have to write an actual intro to this podcast. I mean, we've got to come up with a name. Two Bang Bros.
Oh God, the Big Bang Bros.
Big Bang Bros.
We talk about the Big Bang
Bros. We're bros. I don't think there's anyone else out there with similar names doing similar things. Because we're good Christian boys. But yeah,
we'll have a second season. We'll call it the Bigger Bang Bros.
The Bigger Bang Bros. I gained 50 pounds.
I don't know. We'll figure it out. This is all stuff we could do in post. Fix it in post.
No, I mean, who's editing this? We hiring some? I'm not editing.
I don't know.
This is where it goes to the cutting room floor to die. This probably won't make it.
It's still fun to do.
Fun. We should still do this. All right, I'm going to stop recording now. Thanks for listening to I'm finally reading my brother's book. If your brain feels a little stretched, that's exactly what we're going for. Big thanks to my brother, Dr. Gavin Bascom, for taking the time to break it all down with me and for not giving up on me reading his book. We'll be back next episode to start digging into chapter 1 of On the Inside of a Marble. If you want to read along or just ride the wave of weird cosmic questions, we've got room for you. Don't forget to follow or subscribe wherever you're listening, and if you like the show, leave a review or share it with someone who else is curious about the universe. Until next time, I'm Clay Bascom, and I'm finally reading my brother's book.